I'm very excited to have you all here tonight for a special film screening that is very important and timely. And the name of the documentary is 92, The Silent Revolt No One Saw Coming, a documentary examining Black women's evolving relationship with work, ambition, caregiving, exhaustion, and resistance. Yes. The documentary presents findings from the global state of Black women's labor study. The question that arises, what happens when the very people holding up the economy can no longer sustain the weight? Right? Yeah. Both Executive Director Tara Jane Frank and filmmaker director Dr. J.D. Singleton will take a deeper dive to address these issues facing Black women currently. Executive producer Tara Jane Frank is a leading strategist, author, and founder of the Waymakers Change Group. Over the course of her career, she has advised and educated thousands of Fortune 500 executives and leaders across the industry, helping organizations strengthen leadership capacity, workplace cultures, and employees' experiences. The film director, Dr. J.D. Singleton, is the founder and executive director of the ICONI Institution, a nonprofit research organization dedicated to advancing the economic, social, and labor realities of Black women globally. A strategist, research, award-winning leader, she has advised organizations including NASA, Amazon, Uber, Consumer Report, and United Nations on issues of culture, workforce, transformation, and equity. She also is the creator of the Global State of Black Women's Labor Study. Our moderator this evening is Dr. LaShannon Spencer, Vice President at the Morehouse School of Medicine, where she leads enterprise-wide local, state, and federal government affairs strategists advancing healthcare, transformation, workforce development, policy priorities, and expanding access to higher quality care. Her work sits at the intersection of academia, medicine, healthcare delivery, public policy, and community impact, partnering across sectors to strengthen healthcare infrastructure and drive sustainability systems changes. I'd now like to turn the program over to our moderator.
Thank you, Robert, and good evening. Good evening and welcome. We come together for an important conversation where powerful documentary, compiling data, lived experiences, and a call to action. 92, The Silent Revolt No One Saw Coming, invites us to examine what is happening in today's workplace when talented women, particularly Black women, begin to question environments that ask too much of them, while often failing to recognize, support, and value what they bring. I am especially honored to share this conversation with two outstanding, beautiful Black women, Dr. Jade Singleton and Tara J. Frank. Let's give another round of applause for these two amazing women. Like Tara has often stated,
it's Tara.
Tara, you know,
Like Tara.
Tara, when you're from the South, sometimes you tend to get the phonetics messed up. Tara. Mom, don't get at me.
Tara.
It was November 4th. It was election night. Like many of us in this room, those that were watching were glued to the television. The Sunday before the general election, 60 Minutes actually had a snapshot of the Iowa caucus, and they had the Democratic candidate leading in the polls. Many of us were numb when we woke up and realized what was transpiring. Then, early 2025 triggered some sweeping federal public sector jobs, aggressive rollbacks of corporate diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, and shifting the economic policies. We're looking at an estimated of over 700,000 to 1 million Black women out of work. According to statistics, this is not just a made-up number, but these are statistics. At the same time, roughly 90% of the Black-owned businesses have no employees beyond the owner, and without access to capital and opportunity to necessary to scale. So tonight, it's more than just watching a documentary. It's about connecting the stories that we see, data that we examine, and the dialogue we share to what happens when we return to our workplaces, our organizations, and our communities. So as we begin this evening, I invite each of you to consider this question. What will we do differently because of what you've learned tonight? Let me say that again. What will you do after listening to these two dynamic women? What will you do differently? Because the true measure of a conversation like this is not simply what we take away, but it's what we do. So, ladies, to get started, Dr. Singleton, the title 92 is intriguing. What does it represent and why is it significant?
So the title 92 came from two separate places. So the 92%, as we know, that voted to save democracy, right? So that number was being kind of batted around the 92. But then I was also, in doing research, seeing that 92% of Black women were reporting burnout rates at work, right? So that was being batted around as well. And I thought, wow, what an interesting compound, right? The 92 kind of stepping up to try to save, as is typical, right? And then also really buckling under the weight at the same percentages. And so I wanted to make sure that that was captured. And then the silent revolt that no one saw coming was the change that I was seeing in Black women through our organization, Ikani. We were talking differently about sparing ourselves, saving ourselves, what it looked like when the systems betray you, when you're dealing with this level of institutional betrayal, when you're betrayed by your country. And when you let that really sit in your spirit, when you were betrayed by your country, the damage that that does. And so I wanted to give emphasis to that statistic because it's such a jarring number.
Awesome. So can you talk about the partnership and how the two of you actually came together to really amplify this message that we'll hear about tonight?
I'll let Tara take that one, but I will say she always tells it in this really sweet way, and that's not like how it is. She tries to be humble, and I've been a fangirl of hers for many years, following her on LinkedIn. So we were connected, and I was always looking and doing little comments and likes and stuff. And when she reached out to me, I was like, oh my gosh, it's Tara J. Frank. But then I put on my big girl voice and said, yes, Tara, was there something that I can do for you? And now we've developed a friendship. But go ahead, please.
What is that even? You never told me that. No, I mean, I'm on LinkedIn more than a person should be, okay? I've been better. I'm trying to take some of my time back. But I was on one day and I saw this striking image of a Black woman with a turban, a head wrap on of the American flag, and it said 92. And Jade had written a pretty brief description of a documentary that she was bringing to life. And when I read it, I had just finished writing a book called You Are Before the World, Lessons on Doing Good Without Being Undone. And it just felt very familiar to me, right? This idea of where we find ourselves right now in this nation's history, the reconciliation process that was trying to be born, I'll say, right? We were still kind of in that combative, I think, stage. And I just wanted to support it. That was really all. I reached out and I said, I want to help. I don't know exactly how, but I would love to help. And to be completely honest, my initial thought was just, I just want to invest in the film. Like, maybe she needs, help getting this done or that done. So we got on the phone and ended up exploring some of these ideas a little bit more deeply. We exchanged ideas. I ended up in the film. I did not ask for that, but maybe I did in a way, and I'm not real conscious of it. But yeah, it's just become a beautiful partnership, I think, in friendship. Jade does a lot of research in this space from I'll just say, social construct. She has a very deep understanding of American history as it relates to Black people and Black women. My take on it, or my experience with it, is a little bit different, as in You Are Before the World is a little bit more of a personal account of what happens when you learn to detach who you are from what you do. And also, I do a lot of research inside companies. So I think all in all, that circle started to form in a meaningful way. And Jade ended up with a gorgeous, I think, film and a really critical burning platform.
So that leads me to my next question for you. You've spent your career helping people lead. Your new book, You Are Before the World, explores identity, purpose, and possibility. How does that message connect with the themes that we'll experience in 92?
Well, there are a lot of ways, but I'll just share, one thing that I've been thinking about a lot, especially as it relates to identity. I said initially that You Are Before the World was for the helpers, right? People who see themselves as called to serve, to support, to encourage, to lift up, to make change, to drive change. That 92%, to Jade's point, that voted to save democracy. But the flip of that is, when you identify as a helper, then you don't really know who you are when there's no one to help. Mm. And I think part of what happens there is we subconsciously continue to look for people to save and situations to resolve and things to fix, because I'm not sure some of us know who we are without that, without doing all of that, right? But that's what creates the 92% burnout rate. So what I'm learning inside companies, and it's so interesting, Jade, this dichotomy plays out inside organizations, that Black women are among the most committed to the company. Mm-hmm. We really want the company to thrive. We really want our colleagues to be successful. We want the business to work, right? And simultaneously, we are the most constrained. It is literally that dichotomy that I think we're talking about today, that we've been talking about, and that the film asks us to interrogate.
So you talked about the workplace, and this is for either of you, and I really want the two of you to actually jump in. Who are we without the work? And for women who've spent years building careers, caring for families, serving communities, and being responsible for others, how do we answer the question, who am I when I'm not producing, when I'm not achieving, when I'm not leading, and I'm not taking care of someone else?
Yeah. I think that when we think about social roles, right, every demographic within this unique American experiment that we're all kind of trapped inside has a social role. And for Black women, it has been that of the constant giving and constant martyrdom, right? So if I look back, I can keep going. I could go all the way back to Mississippi, to my grandmother, then to my great-grandmother, and the stories that I've heard are always about work. There's an element of work in there. So, your great-grandmother worked herself to death, died working, right? There's a little bit of valor that comes with that, because that's what we do when we have a social role. If I'm gonna be in this pigeonholed, constrained, confined situation where I can't fully blossom, I'm gonna be the best cocoon that I can be. And when I think about Black women in this society, and myself, included, that cocoon has been wrapped so tightly that we haven't had an opportunity to truly interrogate that. And so this is a shift that I noticed with the Who Am I's. They've taken it, you know, for a lot of us, 1 out of every 2 Black women I know personally has lost their job. I'm in the DC area, right? So now I have to sit, right? They did the school, they did the stuff they were supposed to do, they worked, what did they say, you know, 4 or 5 times harder to get half as far. Gave up everything to do the thing. And now who am I? And I think that interrogation is everything. And we're finally being allowed to do that.
Yeah, I think she stated it beautifully. I'll just kind of add one more layer, which is I think we see ourselves through the social role, but I think it's also human nature to see yourselves through other people's eyes. So the social construct exists, but you're also trying to understand your value through other people's eyes. And so if other people see you as the one serving, the one giving, the one helping, and you get rewarded for that, you get celebrated for the degree to which you sacrifice, right? For the number of hours you work over, for the overextension of yourself, then when you stop doing that, you know, when you pull back that time, when you pull back that energy, et cetera, now all of a sudden people's perception of you changes, right? You're being difficult, you're withdrawn, you're holding back, you're disconnected, you're all of these things. And I think we all know that this contract, you know, this social contract and this labor contract with America is tentative for us. It is fragile, right? So that fear of being perceived as, you know, not taking one for the team the way you always have, I think keeps us in overwork and until we just can't anymore, until you hit a wall and kind of slide down it, right? And I think that's what we're seeing happen with a lot of Black women from a health standpoint. And I know you're deep into a lot of this work and could probably share, I think, a really profound perspective on that.
So this is a question, and I'm very mindful of time because I have 2 burning questions that I want to make sure that I ask for the audience and for those that are joining us virtually. So if there's a CEO that's sitting in the audience or listening virtually, and Jade, you've talked about lived experiences and talking to Black women in the DC area, what would you tell that CEO that's sitting in the audience or listening who genuinely wants to create a workplace where Black women can thrive rather than simply surviving? What advice would you tell them?
I would tell them to stick with what it is that they know. That there's the over-examination that I see a lot, especially if it's a Black woman that's in leadership. You know, how's the reaction? A lot of the time we know. We spend so much time having to rethink how is it going to be ultimately perceived. But when you're really in that leadership seat, being able to exist in your full sum of leadership, I would say. You know, I mean, you look at things like, I can't even think of the gentleman's name that lost all those billions of dollars doing the real estate stuff at WeWork. He got more billions, right? He tried it, it failed miserably, right? And then they said, well, that's too bad, poor baby, we'll give you more billions. We know that it doesn't work like that for us at all. They give you $1 and you don't make it 2, right? And you're done. And what that does is it doesn't allow you to test whatever it is, the market, the team, the environment, to really make a go for it, right? And so I would say that would be my big thing. Like, see what happens when you actually try to go with your gut, right? That's what I would say.
Yeah, I'm going to try to be succinct. God forgive me if I fail. Inside company, we built the Waymakers Change Group. We built a people and performance index, and we measure 2 things: relationship quality and contribution enablement. So relationship quality is a combination of like an NPS score, so advocacy plus retention. Contribution enablement is a combination of kind of a contribution gap that we measure, as well as an innovation composite. The reason this is important is what we're finding in our research is that for Black women, the relationship quality is high. Again, meaning, yes, I would like to introduce you to my family, and yes, I would like to get married to you, right? But the contribution enablement is low. As in, I cannot take risks. I cannot share big ideas. I cannot, push back on the status quo. And there are a couple of reasons for that are emerging in my research. One is a relationship gap, which should surprise no one. When we have relationships with people at work at the highest level, influential people, there is a buffering that happens. There is an air cover, right? There is an advocacy, an amplification, a benefit of the doubt, all of these things that allow someone to lose billions and then get billions more. So there are a lot of very specific levers that can be pulled, but what we're finding is that a relationship gap, as simple as it sounds, remains one of the most important things to fix, right? If Black women are to be able to move through corporate spaces in a more natural, unfettered way.
Wow. Let's just let that sink in just for a few minutes.
She's dope, isn't she dope?
Absolutely. So there are two last questions that I want to ask before we go to the documentary. One is, I'm no longer willing to sacrifice blank for success. Again, I'm no longer willing to sacrifice blank for success.
Peace.
Elaborate on that just a little bit.
Joy.
So we hear peace and joy, but provide more to that.
Yeah, one of the things I talk about in You Are Before the World is know what matters so you can do what counts. And for me at this time in my life, literally like calm in my body, space to imagine, being in places that inspire me, all of that for me is peace. Right? And I need to have all of that to be who I truly am before the world, right? I was known before the need, existed before the assignment. I am a creative being. And so the peace is a requirement for that creativity to thrive. So I'm going to keep my peace so that I can preserve myself at all costs.
Preserve herself at all cost. Think about that. Jade?
I would say joy because, not through the lens of the other either, right? Not performing joy or performing happiness, but being able to tap into what truly gives you that feeling of exhilaration, right? And sometimes it's not what we think it is, because again, we haven't had the opportunity to really get in touch and in tune with ourselves and what you're doing for everyone else. So finding that thing that lights you up.
Can I know we're out of time.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. I'm very bad at following rules.
That's okay.
Okay, so I was having this conversation with our oldest daughter. We have 2 grandchildren, and our older grandchild she's going to be 5 this year. And we were outside once in kind of this park where there were a bunch of kids running around. And she's very demure, she's very shy. And she's kind of walking around and she's watching everybody be wild. Like these kids, she was the only little Black girl in this park. And they were running around and tumbling and grabbing stuff and pulling each other's hair and screaming and hollering. And what I realize is we've been raised, Black people have been raised to like, calm down, be quiet, be still, sit down, stop all that hollering. And the reason we do that is because we're trying to protect our kids from being unfairly judged. But what we do in that process, I think, now that I've had time to reflect back on it, is we squelch their joy so that they can stay safe in a world that doesn't necessarily see their joy, right, as the same exuberance as they see when they see other children. And I swear I wanted to tell my granddaughter, I wanted to be like, I want you to run across this field and scream as loud as you can, right? We need to reclaim the joy, I think, that has been conditioned out of us.
We need to reclaim the joy. Reclaim the joy. In the scenario that she just described, how many of us in this audience have been there? I see hands raised. It's time to change. My last question, and this is truly a burning question. The future that I want Black women to inherit is, y'all both looking.
I would say dignity. To be able to walk in the fulsomeness of their dignity, of our dignity.
I don't have anything better than that. That was good.
So she's saying basically I'm dropping the mic. Dignity. The two of you have done some amazing work. And what is it that you want people to leave here tonight understanding and remembering? You've published a national article. It's the Global Study on Black Women's Labor. You've written some amazing books. And people can go on Amazon.com and purchase the books or even listen to your books on tape. Audible. What do you want when we walk away tonight? What is it that you want us to remember? What change do you want us to incorporate tomorrow?
I would say the big thing that I hope that you feel after watching this documentary is a great deal of love. I think that I desperately wanted to showcase the women that you'll see, Tara and all the other women that are featured in the way that I see them. And I hope that you'll take that away as a kind of a mirror of just how I hold us in regard in that dignified way. That's what I hope. I hope that that love comes through and stays with you.
I hope that we will learn to and/or continue to give ourselves the same grace and kindness and care that we give everybody else.
Tara, Jade, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being obedient, but more than anything, thank you for amplifying a message through the documentary, and thank you for what you do each and every day to make sure that this message, this topic, actually stays out in the forefront. And so as we begin to transition this evening to watch the documentary, I want you to think about a question that I asked at the beginning. What will we do differently because of what we learned tonight? Again, what will you do differently because of the great work, the sacrifices that these two amazing women did collectively? What will you do differently? Thank you so much for being here. We greatly appreciate you, and it is time to watch the documentary.
Give it up for LaShannon Spencer. Thank you. So the optimism for me, it's something that I would cling to as kind of a necessary ingredient of being who I am and doing what I do in the world. And on November 6th, when I woke up, it was gone.
I remember turning to my husband as the results were coming in, and it was dismal, and we saw the writing on the wall. And I turned to him and I said, we can't stay here for this again. I can't stay here for this again.
I just feel like I have on platinum handcuffs. I am actually trapped. felt like the systems failed us. I felt like the structure failed us.
It is a rebellion to let people know that Black women are no longer dying for this.
This is something that pierced me in a way that changed me forever. And I just want to find out, who am I going to be on the other side of this?
We're holding on so tight that we forget who we are. We forget like the point of it all, which is to live. The best thing I could have ever done for myself was let go.
Absolutely.
Can we bring the
House light?
lights up? Yeah.
So we're going to take this time to ask questions. You can ask questions.
And I got a mic.
Oh, perfect. See, that's what Black women are accustomed to doing.
Let me do all the jobs.
If there are any questions, I can bring the microphone to you. Any questions?
And we have a quick brother here too. He just zipped around that room so fast. Thank you.
She was first.
Oh, you was first.
Thank you guys for that revolutionary self-reflection. I'm Selena, and I work here, and I'm a native to San Francisco, where they've pushed a lot of Black people out, but I still scratch and stay here. There's a quote from a Greek poet that says, "They tried to bury us, but forgot we were seeds." And as I work in a predominantly white space with white founders in leadership, my question is when the pot boils over, and again, as a homeowner, someone who takes care of 9 other people with my income, someone's divorced and things like that, I'm trying to figure out, how do I stay in a space without a safety net? I won't revolt without a plan B. I won't go where I don't already have a secure plan, but it sounds like there's another, from that reflection, it sounds like there's something else you all have discovered that I'm not quite yet understanding. Because I am hardworking. I am gonna ensure that it makes sense. And unlike the $1 and then make 2, I've been told I got to make $1 out of 15 cents. So I'm trying to figure it out, because this isn't making a lot of sense. And I want to go where I'm valued aligned, but I don't understand it at this moment in this season.
I think that the big thing there, and I've been completely there, lost everything as a result of some of the things that I valued. The administration cut all my contracts. All of a sudden, no one would even speak to me, right? So I had these big jobs and everything. And it was like one day I was a pariah, right? I think what I had to do was get extremely still. So you're talking about, you have these, and this is for so many Black women, it's not just you. And when you lose your employment, it's a bunch of folks that are impacted. And so being able to step away from that for just a few minutes, to be able to collect yourself and to be able to think, to even be able to sort out where it is that you can go to get the help. None of the answers were gonna come to me frantic, right? And that's one thing that I really had to learn and practice. Nothing was gonna come, no solutions, no path forward. And so even though it's hard, because it sounds counterintuitive, I'd be like, look, get out of my face with this. You know, you're talking about meditating and like all of that. I got to make ends meet. It's too difficult to do it when you're at E. It can't come. All you can do is keep burning that fuel. And so I would say, like, you know, that it does sound so fluffy, but it's really not. Those practices can really help with that clarity.
I think I would just say and acknowledge that what you're going through is something so many Black women, so many people going through right now. And this also happens to be, you know, Black women. I do believe, like Dr. Tana Sessions said in the movie, that she knew Black women would be in the crosshairs of this administration. So you have that one factor, combine that with kind of a manufactured crisis from an economic standpoint, and we're now feeling this double hit, right, of all of these things going on in the nation right now. So this weight that you're carrying obviously is real. We're seeing it more and more in the community. I don't have the answer, right? The one thing I would share with you is we tend to suffer in silence when we're going through things like that, right? We are accustomed to still pretending like we have the answers, to still getting up in the morning and putting on the mask and doing what we have to do. But the reality is, the more we can find ways to share with people, not only what we're going through, but also what we want. What we want. Someone around you may have the answer, the path, the connection, the open door, and you would never know that unless you found a way to give voice to what it is that you want. So we know what you are experiencing, but what do you want, right? Where are you headed? And let people know enough about that to avail yourself to the serendipity that sometimes happens when people know enough, right, about what you're going through. So I don't know if that was helpful, but yeah.
And I think, too, letting some things drop. I know that sounds really hard, but seriously, you'd be amazed at how people figure out a way. When you let it go, you're like, oh, they figure out a way, you know? And so letting a ball or two drop, you'd be surprised at who will pick it up.
They'll look at you for a bit, like, you see that bouncing. If you just keep watching it bounce, eventually somebody's gonna run after it, somebody who is not you.
And I think about just being in the pits. And I think about Joseph and Joseph being in the pits. And so when you're in the pit, what is it that you're supposed to learn in order to be able to do things differently? And so just sometimes it's just very important to just sit there and just be still and just connect it into a circuit while you're in that pit. And that may sound cliche, but it's true. What are you supposed to learn in order for preparation for your tomorrow?
Any more questions?
It's not really a question, it's really more of thank you, deeply, sincerely, spiritually, honestly. It was hard not to burst into tears from watching the leaves from the very first scene. And it's pretty cathartic in many ways because I just wrote a book and it's called Over It. A black girl, it's not a black girl, it's a guide to women getting back on track. A girlfriend's guide to getting back on track, and it's very similar to everything that was in there. So I feel this kindred spirit, and it's almost hard for me to articulate, so I just want to say thank you, keep on keeping on, and if there's anything that I can do to collaborate with you in any way, I would love that. It would be amazing. So God bless you all. Incredible.
Thank you, and God bless you.
I noticed that, my name is Nicole White. I noticed that when you went back, slavery, what have you, and, you know, the mammies and whatnot, and we talk about how we bring that into the workforce. what I'd like you to touch on a little bit is how we bring that through our girls, through our families, especially the older ones. So before we even get to the workforce, many of us are already packing and moving through, carrying family, right? Raising brothers and sisters. Those of us who are able to excel through school and then on to college and all those multiple degrees and then through corporate America and all blah, blah, blah. But we still have family that's pulling. That's what we're hearing here, as well as in the workforce that's pulling. We have all of these forces. And so I want to see what are we doing there? It's not just the workforce. And then the other point I'd like to throw out in listening to this, and thank you for this. We've been here before. Okay? This is not new. This isn't just because of an election. We've been dealing with corporate America a long time, right? And as Black women and our families, et cetera, we've been dealing with this a long time. So it's not just Kamala losing the election, although, doggone it, we worked hard, right? So it's a little bit more than that. And if we just leave it right at this event with this person that's in the White House, then we'll put our hope on somebody getting out and somebody else coming in. And it's not about that at all. So what I thought I heard you tell me in the end, because I was asking the question, you told us to put on our oxygen masks. That's what I thought I heard, right? Yeah. And so as you talk to others and what have you, I think that's a piece that we need to talk about. We're carrying a lot as in our families. You can probably tell I'm one of the oldest, right? I got everybody pulling, right? That kind of thing. And how do you do that? So I wanted to throw that in as well. And thank you for what you've done here.
Yeah, I'll just say really quickly, thank you for sharing all of that, and I feel it, and I want to honor and recognize, that this isn't new. It's not a revolutionary thought that things are broken in this nation and that we're experiencing it more acutely. I think it's always true that people on the margins, see the brokenness in a system better than anybody else, because if you're on the edge of a circle, you can see the whole circle. If you're in the center of a circle, you only see the part you're looking at. And so I think that is universally true. What felt different is kind of I need to take my hands off of this stuff. But what your comment brings up for me, honestly, and I don't have an answer to this, it's something I grapple with, is there is an honor, a love, a sense of familial responsibility, a community commitment, right? All of that is alive and real in some of what you described. I'm the oldest, I'm helping take care of my siblings, I'm there for my family. Like, there is nothing inherently negative about any of that. I think the thing I want us to think about more is what has to be true for us to recognize when that giving, when that serving tips over and begins to deplete us. What is the tipping point? And how do we recognize it for ourselves? Because it's going to be different for every person, right? Each person has different capacity. But what are the things that you have to notice, recognize, acknowledge, right? And be willing to respond to in your own life that tell you this has gone too far. You have given too much. You are verging on emptying yourself, right? You are verging on breaking. Like, that's the conversation I have a lot with women, and that's what I think a lot about. Does that make sense? Yeah, so it's a tension, right? It's like nobody's up here saying, don't take care of your siblings, Don't be there for your family. Don't show up for people. Like, nobody's saying that. We love our families. We want to be there for people. But there is a tipping point,
And just 2 seconds on that. I completely agree with you, every word that you just said. I do think, though, that it is new, that some things are new. When you look at the numbers of Black women with these degrees, and you look at it over 30 years, we have been in a position in these places that we had never been before. The Black billionaire women. I mean, these were things that were not happening in the 60s and in the 70s. So having attained these levels that were once dreams and being able to sit there and say, you've achieved it, you've achieved it, you've achieved it, even looking on the stage might not have been such a possibility years ago. And once you get there, recognizing the trap is still laid can come as a bit of a jarring feeling, even though it's not supposed to, right? So I think that that element is still there and very thick, but thank you.
Hi, thank you so much. This was so wonderful, and I got to see my Spelman sister by surprise here.
I couldn't see you before because it was dark
I know
out
it
there.
was dark. I didn't even know I was wearing my shirt all day today, too. So my name is Tamara, and I had a massage a couple days ago, and it was a therapeutic massage, like real forceful. And afterwards, he said, because I'm like, I have pain here, I got pain here, da, 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 da. And he said, your pain's not physical. You have emotional pain. And I almost like collapsed when he said that to me, that, you know, that it's all like in my body. It's turned my hair completely white, but it's like physically like in my body. And so this just kind of like is like this movie and us being here in this community has been just a wonderful, after, you know, having that moment of like realizing all this is in me. So I grabbed the microphone to ask, one, can we have your cousin's phone number, or how do we reach your cousin who does the healing, and also the other sister who was the bodybuilder and had the practice of the integrative wellness, like that is, and I see more people like using their Western medicine, right? You know, taking our, you know, medication and going to the doctors and getting our screenings. But I see more Black women also going to alternative healing because we realize, one, I mean, you know, we know the medical industry, but it's time. Like we can't, the pain is not physical, it's emotional. And I just end with, I went to a yoga class yesterday. I'd never been to this yoga class before, and I opened up the door and it was just all Black women. I almost cried on the spot. Like, oh, I'm home. But you know, and 20 years ago when I went to yoga, there was just, it was me and that was it. So I see, and I see the young ones, they're like, we're not taking this on. We're not doing this. We've seen what it's done to you all, to the aunties, you know, and we're not doing this.
There's a gap there, too, between those two generations, and people are kind of staring at it, like, who's going to feel this?
Yeah, there definitely is a gap. And for, you know, contact and stuff, we have the information up on the screen, so you can always reach out, yeah.
I think we had
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Good evening. First, I just want to say thank you for such a visually and emotionally and spiritually provocative film. Really, it was just, I could tell it's a labor of love. And the last comment really was the perfect lead into what I want to say, because, you know, as someone who is the first in my family to get a college degree and the first in my family to rise to executive levels in the workplace, and, you know, I won't talk about how it all crashed down in you know, in this administration and everything, but the question is, what do we tell the next generation? I feel almost like I'm setting them up for just, you know, disappointment. And you know, not the way that my mother and my grandmother prepared me, because they didn't go through those doors. You know, they didn't sit in those rooms that I was blessed and had the opportunity to sit in. But at the same time, now it's like the curtain has been pulled back. I see the wizard, right? And do I want them to set them up for that same kind of despair, almost the same despair that I feel like Kamala Harris faced the day after that election. That's my question. What does the future look like for us as Black women and Black people?
Okay, I don't have the answer to your question. Let me just acknowledge that, okay? But you're about to make me cry on this stage. Let me tell you why. I have 6 young adult children, 19 to 29. When the oldest was about to go to college, my husband and I still very much had the formula in mind. You graduate from high school, you go to college, you pick a good major, you get a job, you learn to be excellent at that job, you get promoted, you make a little more shmoney, you have some freedom and some flexibility, you have a family, you make a life. It's how we do this, because this is how he and I did this. With each child, I swear to you, with each child who is moving through this process, I am feeling more of what you described. And so what we've really been trying to focus on is asking them to I don't want to just say pursue their passion, because that feels really cliche, but we're asking them, what lights you on fire? What makes you feel full? What gives you energy? What can you see yourself doing long term? Like, we want them to be happy. We also want them to eat and be able to pay rent. That's a different issue. But to this point of, we worked and we did all these things and got all these degrees and certifications and checked all these boxes, and still, somebody said DEI is dead and a whole bunch of people lost their job. Like, to that point, the pursuit is not the same. It's not the same in my mind or in my heart. It's not what I want for my kids. I want them to lean fully into their purpose, their passion, to find time to discover what lights them on fire, and to make a life of that, and also eat and pay rent.
We have time for one more question.
Sorry, I took too long, but I felt that.
Ladies, I just want to say thank you. I really felt completely seen in probably every chapter. And Dr. Singleton, when you were on the campus and you were walking through, the way you talk about it, I'm 5th generation away from slavery, right? Family has land in Coloma, California in the gold rush, right? And so all of those pictures, they just really resonated with me. I worked for government for 37 years, got my doctorate, done all of the things. Every glass ceiling, it becomes a cement above that, right? And so what resonated with me was, Tara, how you just said a part of you died. And I know it's probably unpopular for me to say this, but I'm standing in my total truth. I was not a part of the 92%. And the reason why I was not a part of the 92% is because I felt a rhythm from the ancestors telling me that this had to be exposed. The veil is no longer there. We are not under a mask of what is unseen. We are seeing who these people really are, right? And so we have a collective, there's a rise in the divine feminine. We are rising, and Black women are leading that because we are the ones that have been ministered so much pain. And so we are continuing to overcome in the midst of, and I heard that it was seeds are planted. Yes, these seeds are planted. And even in the roots, when a tree is cut down, it still has an ecosystem. So I appreciate everything that you all have done, the seeds that you have planted, the reset to our nervous system. And my ancestors start calling me back into the work of, I'm a Reiki master too. And so now I'm listening to that intuitiveness within me, and it's giving me power. It's igniting me. It's giving me fire. I don't know what tomorrow is, but I am in the space of letting go. And so my question to both of you is how do you just let go? Because I know there's freedom there.
Yeah. I'll answer that by saying, first of all, when you were talking about your lineage, that has a lot to do with that feeling. So the woman sitting beside you is my cousin, Che, and Che and I, we're descendants of Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings. So a lot of our lives have been spent talking with Monticello and doing all of these things and feeling a very strange and very strong connection to this country, right? Like crying every time the national anthem comes on. I can't get through it. I have to kind of like leave. And everybody teases me, say, that's that Thomas Jefferson, right? And it's kind of a joke, but it's also very true. That work, toil, the exposure, right? And what Kimberly was saying in the film about it being collective ancestral intelligence, that is an actual thing. And so what I would say is continuing to tap into that, right? Continuing to tap into that and to move into that as that mask is removed and revealed, and understanding that it's going to hurt, And for me, this is devastating, what's happening. It feels like just horrible to see it torn apart like this. But you're right, it has to be revealed. And I think sitting in that revelation is what's going to carry us through. What a powerful question. Thank you.
So again, we thank you so very much for coming out tonight. Let's again give these two amazing ladies a round of applause. And before you go, I would ask if everyone would take out their phone and scan to give, or if not, if you know someone in another state outside of California, they are traveling, they are showing this documentary in private settings to really help to expand the conversation, to work together in a collaborative manner in order to make change for tomorrow. So within that, I'll turn it back over to Robert to close us out.
Thank you so much, Del. All right, I really personally want to thank our speakers, Jay and Tara, for such an insightful, impactful conversation tonight. I was deeply moved by the film. I think the film actually for me felt like it moved mountains, clearing the path for a new journey for Black women to embark upon. I really truly believe that, And Lashana, thank you so much for facilitating this important, timely discussion.
Thank you for having us, Robert.
I want to have you again.
Thank you all for coming. I know this traffic is no joke.
And lastly, thank you all for coming. I'd like to thank those in person and also virtually too for coming and for this wonderful, moving, revelational program tonight, and supporting the Commonwealth Club. Thank you so much.